Hello, and welcome to the Classic Land Cruisers podcast. I'm Dan, your host. You can find me on Instagram at FJ40_UMA_Smurf or on I Hate Mud at Mountain Biker. You can find the podcast on Instagram by searching Classic Land Cruisers. Remember to go to reefmonkey.com to get your Classic Land Cruiser podcast merch. Bring your adventure home with inlowgear.com, your source for custom Land Cruiser apparel and merchandise, where adventure becomes art, designed for the road. This episode was brought to you in part by Redline Land Cruisers, Save Your F, by Manafree, your one-stop shop for Land Cruiser parts and service, by Valley Hybrids and Terrain Tamer North America.
Okay. Welcome to this episode of the Classic Land Cruisers podcast. With me today is Chris Warwick. I kept seeing his 80s series come up on Instagram, and I'm like, you know what? I want to hear more about it. And so I reached out to Chris. He was graciously able to come on. So, Chris, why don't you tell us a little bit more about yourself and how you got into Classic Land Cruisers?
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is Chris Warwick. I live in Dallas, Texas. Cars are a funny thing. So I got into cars when I was old enough to drive, basically. And I have a lifelong friend that he and I connected over cars when we were 16 and started working on cars. And he grew up in Australia. So he actually grew up in Alice Springs out in the outback. And it was always a weekend thing for everybody. They'd hop in the Land Cruiser or the Patrol or whatever ute they had, and they'd go out. And that's what he got used to. Then he came back to the States, and he's always had kind of a fondness of it. Well, he likes to trick me into buying vehicles from him. I've got a 1968 Pontiac Firebird in my garage that I purchased from him. I think I purchased a motorcycle from him in the past. And then back in 2021, December of 2021, he said, "Hey, Chris, there's this event in April called Cruise Moab. If I just happen to find a truck, would you put a little money into it and we could go together and caravan down there?" And I said, sure. So 3 weeks later, in January, he calls me and goes, "Well, I think I found the truck. It's fairly inexpensive. I got it running. And would you be interested in doing it?" I said, sure. So he lives up in Oregon. I live in Dallas. Obviously, there's a little bit of a disconnect there in terms of proximity. But I gave him my credit card number and I gave him a limit, and he just started ordering parts. So he ordered wheels and tires and springs and shocks and bumpers and lights and just everything we could. And this is in January. And Cruise Moab, we had to be on the road, I think like April 13th or 14th. And so literally what ended up happening is I flew up there to look at the truck. I bought a rooftop tent from Mule up there in Portland, Mule Expedition Outfitters. And I bought the tent before I ever saw the truck or bought the truck, but I knew I was going to be camping in it in his driveway while I worked on it. And then wherever it broke down is what I assumed. And so I would fly up to Portland from Dallas on the weekend, like a Thursday night. I would sneak out, fly up there 4 hours, work on it 3 days straight, fly back on the red eye. And then every 3 weeks or so, I would do that. And as it turns out, I found out later in life that he already bought the truck long before he ever asked me if I'd be interested in buying one. And I'm pretty sure he saw it like sitting back behind a shop and had been there for a while. Hey guys, what are you guys doing with it? Oh, it's in for this. The guy didn't want to pay because we need to replace the oil pump and it's got a leak on the timing, whatever the excuses were. And he's like, I'll buy it for almost nothing. So he bought my 80 originally for a parts truck. So he was going to scam the doors and see whatever he could out of it that was usable. And you hear of like women that defend their choices and men with, oh, he still loves me. He just takes a lot of work. I see the good in him, and that's what he does with Land Cruiser. So he's got many, and it's always he buys it to rip it apart and steal the good parts, but then he sees the good in it and decides to work on it also. And so that's what I'm having here. He couldn't cut this apart, straight frame. There's a couple, 80 series problems, faded clear coat here and there. But the body was straight, very functional, ran good. I say ran because it's behind me now with no engine in it. The engine's still fine. It's sitting outside at a 1FZ with 270,000 odd miles on it that never had an issue. The only issue that it ever came up against was altitude.
Yeah.
But we, again, I had a kind of a motorsports background, and so I always loved things that were fast. And so this was a departure from the usual for me. And I see the pictures from where he goes camping in the middle of nowhere and beautiful scenery and no one else around. And it's just him, his wife, and the dog and a campfire. And it's a different lifestyle for sure. And that's what kind of brought me into it. So after we flew it up there, built it in his driveway. So,
Yeah.
we're in there in the rain because it's Portland. So we're underneath it, well in brackets on the suspension for, panhard relocation and putting everything together. And basically I was like, I've got 5 weekends to get this truck from stock to be able to go do, level 6 trails or so in Moab. It was an unlocked truck. It's not unlocked anymore. And, I slept in the rooftop tent in his driveway for, basically every third weekend for 3 months until we had it ready to go. And the first real drive, other than to get coffee 5 minutes away, we left Portland to drive to Salt Lake City to go to the Land Cruiser Heritage Museum.
Nice.
And then from there to go meet the guys out in the San Rafael Swell west of Moab. It's an overnight run during Cruise Moab that Kurt Williams with Cruiser Outfitter puts on, and he hosts it with Wasatch Cruisers. And it's a fantastic event. I've been in that event every year since 2022. My wife likes to camp. She likes adventure. She likes scenery. She's done a lap on the track in the race car, and she said that was good enough for her, so she didn't want to do that anymore. So we needed to find something else that we can go do together. And so she flew into Salt Lake City. We picked her up at the airport, and she rode with us from Salt Lake City down to Moab, camped with us for a week while we did all the trails, got to meet all the people. Vendor night, they've got, all the trucks from all walks of life, the usual suspects. So you see Descent, you see Slee, you see Stellar Build.
Yeah.
You see all those guys, and she sees what you can do to these trucks. She's like, I really like doing this a lot. She's like, if you got a drawer system, then when we go camping, it's so much easier to cook. I'm like, you're right, honey. If I had the drawer system, that would make this a lot easier. She's like, if you had those Shieldman seats, I'm sure it'd be a lot more comfortable. Like, you know what, honey, you're absolutely right. So she was on board with it. And they just kind of got the ball rolling. Once you get into it, you kind of get into it. So it's been an ongoing project, and I like to tinker and do things on my own. And it just kept evolving, and it's still evolving to this day. So I've only been into Land Cruisers for about 4 years, but it's been a lot of fun, and had some good adventures in it so far, and looking forward to plenty more. And I have no plans of getting rid of it anytime soon.
Yeah. So it's like that. Whenever my wife brings up something that she doesn't like with my 40, I'm like, so am I getting permission to fix that concern or address that concern?
That's right.
she's like, there's nowhere to hold on to. And so I built a no crap bar above my glove box. And I'm like, there, now you have something to hold on to. And she's like, well, there's no place to put my drink. And so I got like a little magnetic cup holder to put on the transmission hump. And then she's like, oh, there's nothing to listen to. All right. Didn't have a stereo in it, put a stereo in it. And then a couple months ago, or maybe about a couple months ago, she's like, in November, when we can, you should probably put AC in your Land Cruiser. I'm like, are you giving me permission to put AC in it? And she's like, why? Is it going to be like $100, $200? I'm like, try like $1,500 for the vintage air setup. She's like, $1,500? No. I'm like, oh, I was hoping you were going to give me permission.
Oh, yeah. Just take her for a nice lowland trip through Arizona in summer. Get some traffic for a little bit, and then that $1,500 seems a bit more reasonable if you can manage to put her in that situation. I guess
she won't come in a Land Cruiser unless it's like right after a rainstorm. We had a bad experience. I found this off-road group on Facebook, and they're like, oh, we're going to do a pretty easy trail at night. It's a through trail, so we're going from point A to point B. It's an easy trail. It should be a couple of hours. We're going to start at 7 o'clock. So I show up there, and I tell my wife, I'm like, yeah, it should be an easy trail. It's going to be a point-to-point trail system. Should be a couple hours. We're going to start at 7 o'clock when it starts cooling off. Well, like something like 75 vehicles showed up for this trail run. And so they had to split it up into two groups. And I ended up being in the second group. And so we didn't start until about 8 o'clock at night. I'm like, okay, 10 o'clock, the kids are all at grandma's house. It was not an easy trail. I was on 235 15s, so really small tires. And
yeah,
there was actually like rock crawling and obstacles that you had to get over and through and everything. And it was at night, and all I had was my headlights. And I'm, of course, out with all the Jeepers who have light bars galore and rock lights and chase lights and all these other lights, and I just have my headlights. And I'm on a 50-year-old carbureted vehicle, and I pop one tire, I get a hole in another tire, and I only had one spare, and it's just like, yeah, we got off the trail at 2:30 in the morning. So this 2-hour drive, 2-hour easy trail run was not an easy trail run. It was not 2 hours. And she's like, I'm never running that Land Cruiser again. So,
and it's funny how events like that, obviously you can chuckle about it now, and there's an odd sense of burden that people have when they're going over obstacles about other people. Well, there's three trucks behind me. I should only give it, 1 or 2 attempts, and then I need a winch. And for the rest of us, we want to see you succeed. We want to see you do it.
yeah,
That some of the struggle is part of the fun, because the triumph when you get over, you get through, is good. But when you've got someone that you love and care about that's riding shotgun, that's having to deal with your struggles, then it becomes less fun. And you think about, well, I wouldn't have wanted to be in that situation without her, but also I probably would have had a lower level of stress if it was just me and some buddies and me and some other trucks, and we'll get it figured out. But that's part of it, and hopefully that's not how wheeling goes for you every time you go out.
Oh, that was like the worst experience I've ever had, off-roading, wheeling, whatever. And it's just like, yeah, looking back on it, I'm like, yeah, that was a horrible experience. But I've had so many other great experiences and so much other experiences that was a lot of fun. You know what? I'm going to keep doing it. It wasn't like a horrible experience. You know what? Screw this. I'm getting rid of the cruiser. I'm going back. I'm not going to have a 4-wheel drive. It wasn't like that. So, but you mentioned something, and it's actually one of my favorite questions to ask. But if you could have anybody riding shotgun with you, who would it be? It could be famous, it could be historical, it could be fictional. Who would you have ride shotgun with you?
So this will be a little kind of cliche. Like, obviously, love my wife, love her to be around. I enjoy sharing memories, moments, scenery with her. But for the sake of just interest, I really like geographical history and understanding. And one of the things that's really a lot of fun with doing the swell run with the Wasatch Group is, those guys really study their history, but also the geology in the area. And so every time you come around a corner, oh, here's this type of rock formation. This was first discovered by so and so. Here's where bandits used to hide. Here's where we used to mine for copper and uranium. And this was an old rancher's trail. Being with someone like, and Kurt Williams is usually on the radio and giving that information as you go. So we always try to sneak up to the front so our radios pick up the information that he's sharing, because it just makes you appreciate what you're in. You're not just going through the landscape. Because while you're sitting there and you're waiting on another truck to go through an obstacle, you're looking around. You can see the different like sedimentary layers up the rock wall, and you look at the formation, and you can kind of imagine, depending on your perspective of the canyon, of the delta, of whatever it is. All right, what did it look like when this got formed, or what does it look like when it rains, or what does it look like when it snows? And we get to experience all three of those this past April in that area. But Kurt honestly would be a fun one to have, because his technical understanding of the vehicle is is unmatched. Understanding how to drive the vehicle, you always got a good spotter that's with you, and then just kind of the encyclopedia of information that he's going to have about whatever topic that you're rolling through would just keep you entertained. I don't think you'd be able to really focus on the drive. You get done, and you go, did I just drive that? Like you just be thinking about the stories and everything else. So that's
Yeah.
kind of where my mind goes in terms of having someone along that enriches the experience beyond just turning the wheel and hitting the brake and the gas and that sort of thing.
Yeah. And now, speaking of Kurt Williams, he just recently got back from Japan and like went to a cruiser meetup there, and so he's got even more knowledge and more experience with Land Cruisers, and it's like, yeah, that would be a fun ride. Just
Oh yeah, the trivia that he can offer you, but just the fun little nuances that he got to kind of geek out about while he was there, because things you just don't obviously see here. And with his tie into Toyota and Lexus, he's got access more than the rest of us muggles. But he's it's not gonna be the Kurt Williams show, but he's so approachable with questions, because he enjoys learning, first of all, but he enjoys teaching, and that's one. And I promise it's not a sponsored ad for Cruiser Outfitters, but that's one of the reasons why, in a lot of cases, if I'm in the middle of something, I can pick up the phone, get a hold of somebody in there, and they can walk you through every part that you need. He just runs a really, really good outfit, and with the type of people that typically enjoy Land Cruisers, um, they get into the weeds. They want to know every part number. They want to go the authentic route. Case in point, rebuilding the knuckles and the front end on these 80s, which and 60s, everybody gets to do that. It's kind of a rite of passage. And I called their number. I think goodness, Chance maybe. I can't remember the tech that I spoke with, but I said, I'm replacing everything between the two new wheels that are going on this thing. Can you give me the parts list? And he ran through every single gasket, brush, washer, retainer, nut, bolt, screw, everything that I needed. And like 3 days later, it was on my front porch and I could tear into it right away. And you just can't get that service in a lot of places. And if you've got a technical question, obviously they're in the business of also working on vehicles, but they understand I'm not going to trailer this out there for a 10-minute problem. They've been really good with customer support and follow up. So the type of people that, like I said, tend to drive Land Cruisers want to be hands on, because in a lot of cases, if you know how to work on it in a garage or in your driveway, if you break something on the trail, you're not trying to figure it out there.
Yeah.
And that's a bad time to learn your vehicle. Is in an emergency situation.
Yeah. And these Land Cruisers give plenty of opportunity to learn experience.
Yes, definitely. There's always something. I mean, anything that any vehicle that's classic. I've got an old 19. I say old. It's not old. I've got a 1995, 911, and there's all kinds of little nuances with it, with being air cooled, and I'm learning more than I thought I'd know. I've got a 68 Firebird. That same thing when I was getting into that. Those are approachable cars. You can kind of take them apart and figure out what's going on. And that's one reason why I love the Land Cruisers. They're so, shade tree mechanic friendly.
Yeah.
There's plenty of resources on mud. Of course, Facebook, service manual, and all that makes sense. When you open the hood on an 80 or a 60 or a 40, you can look at everything and identify what it is, what its purpose is, how to take it off, how to put it back on. You're not trying to do calculus to figure out how to reach a certain. I mean, there's always a nut somewhere that's difficult to get to, or a pesky heater hose or something like that. But for the most part, they're approachable. They're approachable trucks.
Yeah.
And I think that's another reason why you see so many old ones on the road for so long, is because someone can maintain it correctly, or they can take the time and order the part and replace what they need to in the driveway, and then go out wheeling later that week or that weekend, or just commute. I've got friends that drive old 60 series and 80 series as their daily driver, and you can do that. I mean, this truck was a daily driver vehicle, or at least capable of it, up until I pulled the 1FC out.
Yeah. I had to laugh when you said the pesky heater hose, because I think that's the actual technical name for that heater hose on the 80 series.
Yeah.
And when you say the pesky heater hose, every 80 series owner, you can just feel them like cringing in pain. They're like, oh. I watched one of the YouTube channels that I watch all the time, Project Wrong Way. Ben Draper was trying to fix the pesky heater hose, and I just had to laugh, because it's like every 80 series owner knows the pesky heater hose.
Yep. And you fear it. And I think I've got one in my drawer system. I've got a couple other just random hoses, just the usual suspects on the 80. And that's the other fun thing is, there's no real unicorns when it comes to problems with Land Cruisers. Like, if one person has a problem, everybody is going to have the same problem or has had the same problem, and is happy to tell you about the time that they had to, replace the heater control valve, on the side of the trail because it turned brown and, cracked open. All of those stories, it's, kind of a fun commonality that you get to have with Land Cruisers that you don't get to with other brands.
Yeah. Well, I recently got this game.
Okay.
It's called Radio Chatter, and it's just a standard deck of cards, but each card has a different question. And so what I'm going to ask of you is just name any card in the standard deck of cards, and that'll be the next question I get to ask you, unless it's a question that
Fun. 4 of hearts.
4 of hearts.
Yes, sir.
Okay, what is the longest road trip you have taken in your 80?
In the 80, definitely in one shot was driving from Oregon to Texas. So, and that was right around 35 hours for the route we took. However, we did it, I did it roughly over 14 days.
Oh, wow.
So it was a long kind of breakdown trip with multiple stops, and went through, start off in Portland, and worked our way up over into Idaho, camped on the side of the road somewhere in Idaho. I can't remember exactly when or where, and then we made it down to Salt Lake, and then into Moab, and you were there the entire week. Then my wife and I were really enjoying it, so we, instead of going back home, we ventured a little bit northeast and ended up in the Breckenridge area of Colorado, and camped, stayed up there, and then made our way back down to Texas. Like I said earlier, the furthest I drove it before I actually got to drive it was to get coffee, and then we hit the road, and it made it with no issues from Portland down to Texas. And we had a couple of trucks with us, so, and they're all 80 series, so everybody, we've got spare parts. We can figure it out on the side of the road, and it never failed me. Any issues that it has had have been very simple. So it's not a scary vehicle to take on a cross country road trip. It's just, hey, it's worked when I've driven around town every day. It's no different. Once it gets up to temperature, it's fine. When it's not at temperature, it's still fine. So just keep driving. Just keep driving for us west. I think Alex, that was on the show not too long ago, mentioned the worst part of driving anywhere fun in Texas is getting out of Texas, because you are getting out of Texas for 11 hours before you get to somewhere that you enjoy.
Yeah.
And that's the honest truth. So once it makes that of Texas, then it's just, short little hops to pretty places. And then, it's like working out on the treadmill. It's like, all right, just 5 more minutes. And then I only have 10 minutes left. And then you get to that 5. It's like, all right, just 2 more 5 minutes. And that's how you kind of look at breaking up, an anxiety inducing trip is I just make it to this town. They've got a gas station. Perfect. And they've got, a hot dog and an ice cream stand, and then we can go to the next place, and then they'll have an O'Reilly's or an AutoZone or a Napa or whatever they end up having. And so that's always been the mindset. It's just getting out of Texas you have to do first, and then you can get to towns.
Yeah. See, and that's like one place that I've never been, is Texas. But yeah, I'm getting ready to next month go up to Solid Axle Summit, and at first, for a hot minute, I was like, you know what, my Land Cruiser's running great. Sorry, I have to wipe. It's like 104 out right now, and humidity because we got monsoon, so I'm just like drenched in sweat. For a hot minute, I'm like, you know what, my 40's running great. We can drive my 40 up to Colorado. And I looked today, and it's a 10-hour and 16-minute drive from Tucson to Ouray. And so I'm like, and going back, I'm like, okay, if it was the Land Cruiser, it would actually be like 15 hours.
Right.
It'll be like 55 miles an hour. And then I'm like, you know what? Okay, maybe we'll flat tow it. I've flat towed it before, no big problems. And then when my motor went out and I had to flat tow it with my wife's Highlander, and it started like fishtailing at me. I'm like, okay, no, not flat towing it. I'm going to get a trailer and we're going to actually tow it up there correctly. And I'm really looking forward to it, because that will actually be the longest. Yeah, I'm not driving in my Land Cruiser that whole way, but that'll be the longest extended trip in my Land Cruiser, is going from Tucson to Colorado for a week. And it's like,
it's furthest away from home. Yeah. And now here's another thing that's kind of a fun take on that. So my son was born in 2024, and he was born in January. And we took him at 8 weeks old to Cruise Moab from Texas. Now, I rented a motorhome and then put it on a trailer, which was nice because I got to take the rooftop tent off of it. which made it handle like a sports car compared to what it was
Oh,
before, it felt like. But what was also kind of reassuring is if I broke something catastrophically on the trail, I just have to get back to the trailer. I mean, it wasn't, oh no, I've got to find this part and then I've got to drive 1,100 miles back. It's a 16-hour trip to Moab. And most of the time I leave, I usually do it in one sitting. It's in one day. I just, I iron butt it all the way through. But there's some freedom with having a trailer back. Like, okay, well, we break here. I just need to get to the trailhead and then we can pull up and load it up. And not that you got to worry about that, but having that lifeboat,
yeah,
kind of, it puts a little weight off your shoulders when you're out there, especially if you are 10 hours, from home and little Switzerland. So I think that's the part that you'll enjoy when you get up there is, well, all right, we might, your problems on a 40 are different than an 80. If you're dragging your drive shaft on something, you're you're really stuck. But you don't have, again, you just don't have to worry about what it is, and that makes it a little bit more enjoyable. Like, there's still the pride of being able to drive your stuff up, but honestly, if you're there, that's the thing that matters most. No one really cares how you get there. I mean, unless there's an actual trophy at the event for driving the furthest, you're not going to get a trophy for doing it. So do it in something that you're comfortable with driving, that you can enjoy the drive, and then not have the stress of, okay, I've got to get it there, I've got to wheel it for a week, and then I have to get it back under its own power. That makes it a little bit more nerve-wracking.
And I almost automatically don't qualify for an Iron Butt award because people coming from Texas, Tennessee, Kentucky, Florida, it's like, yeah, I'm not going to get an Iron Butt.
Yeah, give them the trophy and show up in the air conditioning with 12 cup holders, and that's the way to do it. And then having a home base, like, all right, I don't need all these tools with me. I don't need these spare, like, my bags can stay in the truck. I think you're doing the right move. It'll just make it that much more enjoyable.
That, and
like I said, if you're not going to get a trophy either way.
That and my Tundra, in addition to the 12 different cup holders in the front seat, has AC. Oh, it has AC. It's so good. Yeah,
well, that was this past year. I went to Cruise Moab, and unfortunately, I had a medical thing pop up, and it cut me short, and I had to drive back home. But I really enjoyed wheeling without the rooftop tent. But I also enjoy camping and not sleeping on the ground. And so, I've got an LX 700H also, and that's my go to the office vehicle. And it's rated for like 9,000 pounds of towing. And so there was a portion of me that was like, do I just want to enjoy like a massage seat and a cooled console with a Coke in it? And at the end of the day, I started driving the 80 probably 2 weeks before the event, just to see if there's anything that has rattled loose or whatever issue. Like the year before, I found my AC compressor locked up, so went and got that fixed real quick before heading out. Little things like that. As I'm driving, like, this thing is so comfortable, and it changes the way you drive. So you're going to drive your 40 differently than you do your Tundra for a number of reasons. One, speed, comfort, safety, size. A lot of those make a big difference. Like with the 80, I love animals, but if a squirrel runs out in front of the 80, I don't have to worry about the 80 getting damaged, on 37s. There's a lot of pronghorns and deer and that sort of thing out there, and driving the 80 with the, Australian setup, ARB on the front with the spotties, I'll be in better shape than I would be in the LX if I hit something, and then I'm then I'm real stranded. But when you drive this thing, you do drive it slower. It tends to be a bit, closer to the speed limit than I'm used to. But it slows your pace down. I find that I have more patience for other people on the road. I'm not in a hurry to, catch beat every light.
Yeah.
And it really makes the journey more relaxing. And that's why I do like driving the 80 on long road trips, because I'm not in a hurry versus I'm trying to, always beat Google if I'm in anything else.
Yeah. It was kind of interesting. Beginning of the month, last month. Yeah, geez, last month we had a family reunion.
Already?
A family reunion up in Idaho, and I was kind of cruising around with my brother-in-law at our family reunion, and he's a big bow hunter and likes to go deer hunting, and he took my sister on her first hunt, and she nabbed a buck with a bow, and he's like, oh look, there's two deer behind that, or there's a deer behind that fence with two fawns. I'm like, how did you see that? I'm looking for wildlife, I'm not seeing it. And then he's like, oh yeah, while I was waiting for you guys to get back, I went on a little hike and I found this spot where the deer was bedding down, and I found this spot where the deer was bedding down, and I took pictures of them like bedding down. I'm like, how are you seeing these? And he's just like, how are you not seeing them? And
Is he Navajo?
no.
Does he have like he doesn't have a bloodline that helps with that? Okay.
And all of a sudden I'm like, oh look, there's a Land Cruiser. Oh look, there's an 80 series, there's a 100 series, there's this 60 series. And I'm like, is there something wrong with me that I can see all the Land Cruisers, but I can't see any wildlife?
Yeah, I think they call that autism. But yeah, it's the same thing. I don't know if you've ever seen the what is it, defensive driving video where it tells you to count how many times the ball gets passed and forth between the crowd, and you're watching it, and he goes, okay, great. Did you see the dancing bear? I'm like, what? And then you see a guy in a bear suit, same video, comes walking through, he's dancing, the ball's going all over which way, you just never see him. And basically what they're trying to point out is you don't see what you're not looking for. And so if you're looking for deer, if you're looking for those things, and you're more apt to looking for it, then you're going to see it. You see a 60, 80, you might just see the B pillar between two cars as it goes by, and you know what it is because you've looked plenty of times. So it's the same type of thing.
Yeah. Well, you're actually the second person to accuse me of having autism in the last month.
Yeah. We're all trying to diagnose everything we can.
Yeah, there's with the job that I have, occasionally we get National Guard troops or even active duty troops coming and helping us out. And they're one of the troops, he's like, oh, I hear you have a podcast. I'm like, yeah. And he's like, well, what's it called? I'm like, Classic Land Cruisers. And he's like, well, what's it about? I'm like, Classic Land Cruisers. And on my desk, I have at least 45 die-cast or collectible items of Land Cruisers. I have my old dash gauges on my desk, the old gauge cluster. I have signs, I have die-casts, I have a Toyota emblem, and it's just, and he goes, oh, so that's your train. Like, your train. Are you calling me autistic? He's like, everybody's got a little bit of it.
Yeah. There's worse things to have your autism towards.
So, what would be like your dream build 80 series? That one?
So, I kind of ran through some of the things that we did while it sat in the driveway. I bought a 4x4 Labs bumper, but they didn't have time to make one, so they sent me the loose pieces bundled in a kit. I welded it, myself in the driveway. We did a 4-inch lift on it. I've got 488 gears from East Coast Gear Supply with Eaton lockers, RCV, chrome moly axles. I've got the power brake, big brake setup on the front,
Okay.
Power stop brakes in the rear, and I've got an LS3 sitting on a standover that's going to go in it. And at that point, I mean, with the interior, I've got Shieldman seats. I've got a drawer system from Air Down Gear Up, and I'm hopefully soon going to get the interior updated a bit to match the Shieldmans in the front. So get the rear seats done the same material. I talked to Toby about that, and they can ship any of that stuff anywhere you want to go. And that kind of completes it. You can do what other folks have done, and go with coilovers and 3-link and all that stuff. And trucks look great. They do phenomenal things. I'm never going to push something like this to that level because I'll have my wife and kiddo with me. And you can do it with those things. I'm just not going to. I like having things that are a bit more purpose built. And for me, I want it to drive like my LX does. So that's why it needs 500 horsepower instead of the 126 that it had at the end of its life, whatever it is. And that's pretty much it. It's comfortable. It's, for me, it's pretty to look at. Like I said, it's got some paint, clear coat peeling off here and there. It's got a couple of dings. It's got some pinstripes. It's got character, but mechanically, it's going to be sound. Everything. Well, when the engine's in, every component other than the axle housings have been replaced. So it'll be a fully built truck and should run another 150,000 miles on that engine without any issues. And that's pretty much. I'm still torn on the rooftop tent. A couple of my buddies up in the Pacific Northwest have Go Fast camper tents, and they love those, and they're considerably lighter. I've got alu cab because I wanted to have something comfortable and durable and enough room for my wife and I to sit up and watch something on the iPad before we had a little one, and now he'll watch something on the iPad instead. And so I'm I just got done building a house and built a garage around being able to work on the Land Cruiser. So I've got a lift, I've got high ceilings, I've got a pulley system that I've not implemented yet, so I can take my rooftop tent on and off. But honestly, I'm kind of building the truck that was my dream build. I really like some of the creative solutions people have come up with, and kind of was it Basil's Garage that cut theirs down and made it a 2-door. That's a phenomenal rig. That's way above my talent level. I can buy things and bolt those things on. I can do a little bit of fabrication, body work, not so great on. But yeah, that's probably my dream 80. My wife really loves 40s. She just wants that car, but it's really difficult to. It's not really difficult to justify, but it's hard to have here in Texas because the speed limit's 80, 85 around here. Everyone does 20 over. And that's tough to do in a 40. It has to be kind of an autumn and spring car. But we're looking at, I've been dabbling on Bring a Trailer. It's hit my pocketbook a couple of times, but I really want like a 75 for my son who is 2. Like, he doesn't need one now. So it'll be for me for the next 15 years. I just want something a little unique that's not fast, but has some character and still enjoyable to drive, up to go get coffee or, go to the local wing place and have a beer or two and then make it back home. But I really, after getting this truck and meeting a lot of the people, and that's one thing that I, really wanted to kind of express the difference in culture around the Land Cruiser community versus others. The Land Cruiser community is made up of people, and my friend told me this before we got into it, but I'm not saying that other people are dumb, but what I'm saying is there tend to be a larger sample group of intellectuals. You've got engineers, you've got architects, you've got tinkerers, you've got a lot of people that come from a different background, but all have a common interest. And you don't get that in other groups. I talked about my old 68 Firebird, and I race it in autocross, and that community is so competitive and secretive. It's very much a measuring contest anytime you go anywhere. I mean, tire size, you name it, and they judge you based off of it. And a lot of them don't like being very helpful because they want to be a little bit unique and different, and that it's just not as a warm and welcoming community. Versus here, everyone kind of celebrates what you've got and why it's different, and want to know, ask questions like this, like, what all have you done? Where have you been with it? What are you going to do next? In the car scene, they don't really care for that, and it's made it more appealing, and it has furthered my interest in Land Cruisers and finding rarer Land Cruisers, and find those special ones that still can catch some attention. My 80s and 80, there are much nicer 80s out there, but it still doesn't matter. I'll sit at a gas station in Utah or Colorado or West Texas, and people will come up to me and ask me about my 80 series. And like, it was I think almost every component I've put on this truck costs more than what my buddy paid for the truck and what I paid him for it. I know the tent costs more, the seats cost more, the drawer system costs more, the brakes cost more. Everything adds up in it. But I would do it all over again with a 60 somewhere, or a 40, or something else. And you're never on an island.
Yeah.
You always have a community that you can ask for help, and they're so excited for it. Right after I got the LX last spring, I got one of the very first ones in Texas, and it was kind of a fluke deal. I called, they said, hey, it's actually on the truck in the parking lot here at the dealership. And I was like, oh, great, I'll swing by tomorrow and take a look at it. And they said, if you're not here in 25 minutes, it's going to be gone. I was like, okay, well, so I was 22 minutes later, I was there. The very, I think it was the third day that I had it. Toyota had an event down in Poughkeepsie Rocks. So TLCA was down there, and I drove it down there. And guys in 200s were pulled up next to it. I mean, there's guys with rock crawler, 40 series, running off propane, and just the craziest stuff, stopping to take pictures of that. I'm like, this is a mom's car. I mean, from all standards, from everybody else. But they were just so excited. Like, oh, you got the newest one. It's got all these features. How do you like it? And it was just interesting to see people with built, beautiful, like there was a 200 that was black, armored, had descent, everything. I mean, it was a beautiful truck. And he pulled over and he's like, I need to see the inside of your car. Okay. So he opened it up and he, geeked out about it. And it's just such a friendly place. And so, family oriented and family friendly. With a 2-year-old now, we can get out and run around, and he can ride in the back with us. And when we go on trails, and it's not the same environment as some of the other circles that I've run in before. And so it's a circle I'd rather, broaden and stay within for a long time.
Yeah. And, everyone I've talked to has said pretty much the exact same thing. They're like, oh my goodness, there's the car culture, and then there's Land Cruiser culture. And everyone who's in part of the Land Cruiser community, yeah, they go out of their way to help you out. They're like, oh, I've had this, you're having this problem, I had that same problem, this is what I did to fix it. And a lot of the time, within the car culture, there's a competition, and people don't want to tell you what they did because they don't want to give up the upper hand in the competition. And even some of the other off-roaders, it ends up being a competition. And in Land Cruisers, it's just, we're not in competition with anybody. And I've said this before, I've come to like a Cars and Coffee or a Land Cruiser meetup, and I'll park my Land Cruiser next to a built-up buggy style 40 series that is on 40s or 37s and built up and ready to like reinforced axle housings and skid plates and armor and all this other stuff. And then there's mine, which is kind of a resto mod. And then there will be one that is completely restored, nuts and bolts and everything. And all three of them, I'm just like, I love it. I absolutely love it. Because,
right.
And you can do that. You can have one that's perfectly restored and it is awesome. And then you can have one that's built up and it's just as awesome. And it's like, And never once in being around Land Cruiser people have I been like, well, I'm not going to help you out because I don't like what you did with your build. It's like,
The ego isn't there. Everybody does Land Cruiser things for themselves, not outwardly to say, look at me, where you might get with, you know, Jeeps and other things where it's very much, look at me and all my ducks. With with the Land Cruisers, a lot of guys, you pop the hood and the configuration on how they wire their lockers or how they ran their accessories or where they want to get creative and they want to do unique things and they want to do it because they like being quirky. And that's really, what it boils down to is your own personal taste. And that's one thing I really like about Land Cruisers is if you park everybody next to each other, you can look at almost the same truck. Um, but when you get inside, it's different from one truck to the next. Like for me, I like a really um, clean and stockish appearance in terms of like the interior. And so, I've got a GME radio. Their new system they just got in the States hides really well. Everything is out of sight. So when you're looking out the window, it's not on the dash, but it's right by my knee. So I can grab the handheld. Everything else is hidden. It's out of the way. I want to keep that clean aesthetic. But then it's fun when you hop in someone else's truck and they've got mounts everywhere. Oh, here's my camera. Here's my auxiliary GPS. Here's my radio. Here's my backup radio. Here's my map. Like whatever it is, they've got, it looks, like it's going to give you seizures at some point with all the things going on. But then when you're out on the trail and you're bouncing around, you're like, well, let me see what, Garmin says where we are. And you can, there's benefits to it, and that's what they like. And going back to like helping, so my best friend Justin Buford and a good friend Mitchell Tinoff, he's up in Canada. Twirly Stash is his Instagram handle. They flew down right after we got in the house, and they just spent a weekend here helping me tear out the old engine. And so they literally like flew in on a Thursday night, went out and have something to eat. Friday, I think we played around for a little bit, and then Saturday was business day, and ripped everything out, and then flew back home Sunday. And you're not going to get a lot of people that just willingly do that to come help, and it's an excuse to hang out, sure, but the help is what you remember, and making memories around that was a lot of fun, and that's again because I'll always remember that, and I'll always think about that when I'm out wheeling and running into folks like that because they're always willing to come out and help you.
Yeah. So is there a place that you want to take your Land Cruiser?
Yes. So everywhere, I think, is an understatement. I've not done Uray. I've been asked to, and I was like, I wonder if I can make solid axle some after I tore the engine out. Like, well, I'm definitely not doing it this year, so I might look forward to doing it next year. I want to do Rubicon. A buddy of mine has done it before, and actually, my two friends that came in, it just happened to be serendipitous that they met on the Rubicon also. So two separate friends, two different countries, and literally they didn't know they were going to be there and ran into each other on the trail. And they just talked about obviously it's a technical spot. You can get in a little bit of trouble there. But if you've got, a triple locked 80 on 37s, you're going to have a good time. You're going to make it through. You might, ding a thing here or there. But that's really where I want to go. I'm going to do Uray. I would love at some point, if I've got more time. I've never been to the Dakotas. Those are the only two states I've never been to. I've been to 48 states and would like to make it up there and do a road trip. And when my son's a little bit older, we'll try to look for that in the summer and grab a couple of weeks. There's a buddy of mine that lives not too far from here, and he and his teenage daughter just drove the Continental Divide. So I think they went to it from the southernmost point that they could get to where it made sense coming from Dallas, and then just follow the Continental Divide, I think all the way up to Canada, and drove back in his 80 series. And something like that would be a lot of fun to do. Yeah, just take it slow, find the little coffee shops, find the little town squares, find some good trails that lead over the hills every once in a while. The bucket list trip, though, in all honesty, would be 6 weeks in Australia. I think that would be the bucket list. I think I'd be better off flying down there, going through Marketplace and buying one when I get there, than doing it that way. And depending on my love of the vehicle, either ship it back and work on importing, or donate it to a charity or something like that down there. But that'd be a big bucket list trip. That's that's a decade from now. That's not anytime soon.
I still have that on my bucket list, and for a hot minute when I was supposed to be going to Australia this year for long drive for drought, for a hot minute I was like, I want to go down to Australia, buy a Ute, a 40 series Ute, and bring it back to the United States. And one of my buddies at work was like, dude, your 40 series isn't even running right now, and now you want to get another one that might not run? I'm like, you always got to rain on my parade.
Yeah, well, when you put it in that perspective, yeah.
Well, it's kind of interesting talking about how you couldn't make Solid Axle Summit this year because you just tore the motor out. So on Mud, there's the thread for Solid Axle Summit is already at like 85 pages of thread, and if you don't pay attention to it for like 3 days, you're already missing like 3 pages of everything. Well, one of the I'm going to mention his mud handle. It's Raisin Hell or something, but he's going to Solid Axle Summit, and last week he sold his 80 series, and he's like, oh, I sold my 80 series. I better find something else that I can take to Solid Axles. I'm like, dude, what are you doing selling it right before the event?
Right before your event.
He's already got a line on another one, and he's going to put a supercharger on it. And I'm like, dude, there's 19 days until you're running out of time selling vehicles and buying vehicles. Oh. And I'm like still stressing out that I have to do a speedy sleeve on my drum brake for my parking brake, and put my rear drive shaft in, and do my new cooling fan that I just put together today. And then I should be able to go, or I should be good to go. And I'm already stressing out about it. I'm like, I'm not going to have enough time. I'm not going to be done. I'm going to have to push my truck onto the trailer, and I'm going to have to finish it when I get. And here's people like buying and selling trucks right beforehand.
Yeah, you're gonna have to roadkill it. That's my lockers. I literally, I got them. I got the third members into the truck, and then I rough wired everything. When I say rough, like I just ran it and did wire management, but didn't tie anything in until I got to camp in Utah. I was like, okay, now I really have to get it done, and then kind of prioritize. In my line of work, everything that I have to do is very scheduled and systematic, and I kind of take that approach and work backwards. So I look at my end date, and then kind of work backwards and say, like, when do I? And I do this with everything in life. I'm also a huge procrastinator, and you tend to do that when you just look at, all right, when's the latest I need to leave to still make it? And I'll set a plan up that gives me plenty of cushion. I'll have 4 weeks, but then I'll find something else to do for those 4 weeks. And then I really do have to push it all the way up until I leave. And there's always 1 or 2 things left off. You can always be more ready, right? You could always be more ready. You just have to be ready enough to drive. And that's really what it'll come down to. What can I live with? What do I have to have done? What can I, you'll always get an extra hand once you get there from somebody. Hey, what are you working on? Oh, let me help you. And they jump into that, and it gives fun bragging rights to poke fun later around camp at night that they were helping you put your stuff together before you went on the trail. And yeah, there's no harm in that. it's just part of the excitement.
Yeah, right now my son is begging me to get my cruiser done before Saturday afternoon because he and a buddy wanted to take their Forerunners out to a trail that we've done a couple of times. He hasn't ever driven it, but he wants to take his Forerunner out and do it. And I'm thinking that he's wanting me to take my Land Cruiser up and do a shakedown on it as well.
Yeah.
Depends on when and if the Speedy Sleeve comes in to seal up the transfer case seal. If it comes tomorrow or Friday, I might be able to get it done and be able to take it on a shakedown ride. But if not, I'm probably just going to keep plugging away until it's time to put it on the trailer. And then I'm more confident now that it'll be done before I have to go to solid axle. Whether or not I can do a shakedown run on it is yet to be determined. So,
and again, the other beautiful thing about towing it is if it's not quite done, you can still get up there, be present, and you'll have plenty of help if you need an extra hand, and you kind of can divide and conquer what needs to get done.
Yeah. Well, we're right at about an hour. Do you have any final thoughts?
Okay. No, just thank you so much for reaching out and bringing me on the podcast. I've never been on a podcast before, so this is new. But yeah, enjoy just chit chatting, and I'll be obviously posting progress as I start to work on this thing and get it a bit ready, and then hopefully I'll be at Solid Axle Summit next year. And again, back in Moab's my big push for April, and I'm going to try to do all three: Solid Axle, Moab, and Rubathon next year. But we'll see.
One that I would like to do is Lone Star. I'd like to get out and do Lone Star sometime. The Lone Star Roundup. I think that would be a fun one to.
Yeah, and that's what I went down and did in the LX. Not a lot I can do in the LX in that territory, especially with paper tags still on it. Ironically enough, I sent pictures of it on some rocks to Kurt, and Kurt was with the guys from Lexus, and they were in Big Bend, Texas, all driving the LX 700 for like a journalism piece off road. He said the guys are pretty stoked to see non-journalists out there in an LX, driving around. But it's a great time. It's a really good crowd. The facility is great, and everyone's excited to see whatever rolls through the gate down there. So you ought to make it down. And it's actually a pretty time of year to be in Texas. It's tolerable. Yes, definitely recommend it.
And see, real quickly before we go, I look at Instagram and I see other people who, like right around October, they're like, oh, man, I have to put my 40 away. I have to put my 60 away for the winter. And I have to just wait and keep it under wraps until winter's over. And then I can bring it out. And then in like April or May, March, they're starting to bring their Land Cruisers out of hibernation. I'm like, man, from September to May is when I would love to drive my Land Cruiser most in Arizona. I put it away for the summer.
Oh yeah, and you have to. My cars are that way too. I've got air conditioning in both, but still, I prefer not to drive it when it's 104 and you're sitting in traffic here. They're fair weather cars. This thing, the best the AC ever worked was right before I pulled the engine out. Hopefully the new AC works well too. We'll see.
Yeah. All right, Chris. Well, it was good talking to you, and
yeah, you as well.
Thanks for coming on the podcast.
Yeah, you bet.
All right.
Good talking to you. Thanks, Dan.
We'll talk to you later.
All right. Bye.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Classic Land Cruisers podcast. As always, remember to go to reefmonkey.com to get your Classic Land Cruiser podcast merch. Bring your adventure home with inlowgear.com, your source for custom Land Cruiser apparel and merchandise, where adventure becomes art, designed for the road. Again, this episode was brought to you in part by Redline Land Cruisers, Save Your F, by Manafree, your one-stop shop for Land Cruiser parts and service, by Valley Hybrid's and Terrain Timber North America. As for me, the mountains are calling and I must go.